Okay, guys, welcome back to another episode. Adjusting the camera there. Welcome back to another episode. This one's going to be a longer one, so this is all about knee pain. I want to start off this episode saying this is not medical advice. This is not medical advice. This is just what I've done and all of the experiences and the doctor's visits and the athletic trainers, the physical therapists, you name it, all of it over a decade of what worked for me, what I've kind of learned, the pieces that I've put together, some self-study. So this is everything I've done. This might work for you, it might not. If you have something that did work for you, let me know down below. If you disagree with something, that's great. You don't have to do this. This is just my anecdotal evidence. These are the things that have worked for me. Some of the people that I've worked with, this has worked for them. So again, not medical advice, but just things I've done, anecdotal. Cheers. Let's go. All right. So first, we are going to be looking at tendon health and strength and isometrics. So you have something like a wall squat ISO, a split squat ISO, loaded split squat, loaded wall squat ISOs. You have a lot of different variations. The goal is, can we get you into different ranges of motion because you're loading that joint angle, the angle of that tendon, wherever we're going. And so as you can see here, I have a couple different videos. One of my favorites is this one we're on right now, which is a leg extension ISO. Single leg, you can do a double leg, but that one you can really see the progressive overload. Is it getting easier? Can you go for longer? Those were a big one when it comes to strengthening my tendon. The reason why I like isometrics and they've been so useful for me is it's hard to hurt yourself. If it hurts, then stand up a little bit. Don't go as deep. If it hurts, find a different position. You can go unbelievably simple with these and find a way to not have pain. And then again, like finding a way to progressively make it harder is really easy. Stay there for longer or start to add some weight as you saw in some of these videos, and then lo and behold, we'll start to strengthen that tendon over time. A lot of these isometrics are better done with more time. So you don't want to push the intensity like crazy right off the bat with weight. I think at some point you can start to experiment with that and start to lower the time and up the intensity. But at the beginning, for quite a long time, just roll with how long can you go. Usually I would increase the load personally. If I'm getting around 60 seconds, can I start stacking that up towards different intensities? But I've known a lot of other coaches and people to go for much longer durations, like 2 or 3 minutes. It's up to you. Play with it. What works for you? What feels good? How can you recover from it? These are all questions that you need to kind of find out and play with. Okay, so next, quad strength and eccentrics. So another piece to me solving this this knee pain, wow, is eccentrically loading my quad, which still hits the tendon, but you're really trying to control as slow as you can all the way down to the bottom. And so as you can see here, this first video, I am doing heels elevated so we can push our center of gravity a little bit more over, and we will actually end up loading that quad a little bit more so we don't have as much glute and hamstring activation, pushing our hips through. Another good one, finding some length here, is actually using a natural knee extension. You're really just trying to get full range of motion within these quads. And it really, to me personally, outside of just the mobility of your quad, which is a huge factor for that quad tendon not pulling on the patellar tendon, because if you think about your knee joint, you have all your quad muscles, you have your hamstring muscles, you've got calf, front of the shin, like you have all of these muscles starting to intertwine into this one spot. So if you have something at the top of the chain or at the bottom of the chain getting pissed off, boom, it meets. And so we'll talk about that more, but right now, quad, still talking about quad. You can do the natural leg extensions with assistance with a band, as you can see here. And then again, you can still do back squats if that's something you like, but lower the weight. You can increase the reps, but it's just load management. Can we find a weight that doesn't piss you off? And then can we progressively overload by maybe just starting by time under tension? How slow can you make that eccentric? Time under tension. Again, you could look at how many reps you're doing. There's a lot of different ways that we can look at loading this quad to still build strength and not piss off your tendon. Again, don't fear a leg extension machine. If you're feeling pain with the leg extension machine, then you either need to lighten it up or just go do a different exercise. Again, a lot of this knee pain is going to be based off of what exercises do and don't hurt, and then how can we load those. And then you want to look at bilateral and unilateral movements. So I just showed you a bunch of bilateral movements, unilateral being single leg movements, like a Bulgarian split squat. You can load at the bottom. You don't even have to do a Bulgarian split squat. You could just do a straight up split squat. You can elevate the front foot. You can elevate the back foot. And again, take your time. Take your time. So again, similar, this is a box step up or step down, whatever you want to call it. And I'm really trying to find some depth and go slow. A ATG split squat is another great option because you're trying to get that knee joint in a full range of motion. And again, you're taking that quad through a full range of motion. You're working the ankle complex here, opening up the back hip flexor. There's a lot of great pieces to this movement. It's been fairly controversial, but it's a great movement. If we're looking at rehab wise, mobility wise, it's a phenomenal movement. So just kind of take out all the controversy in terms of like being the most athletic or knee pain. This is good because you can load the quad. It's as simple as that. You can open up the hip flexor. You can start to strengthen the ankle. So don't overcomplicate it. Next, we have the foot and ankle. A lot of people don't really look into the bottom of the chain. They'll always want to go to the hip or the tendon itself. But usually, again, because of the shoes we wear, the bottom of our feet are super weak. And then we just, honestly, our ankles, not even on ranges of motion, but our ankles are just really fucking weak. Excuse the language, but you're just really weak. So this first video is literally me working. If there's an imbalance between your ankles on ranges of motion, that might be one of the reasons why you have some pain. Okay. But outside of that, let's look at the strength, because I feel like that goes a long way, and you might be able to level out that imbalance. Even though don't overly focus on that. Let's just get strong. That imbalance might weed itself out. So you have standing calf raises, working that gastrocnemius, which is that bigger muscle, as you can see here. And then the seated calf raise works the soleus, which is one of the larger muscles in the body, but let alone the lower leg. And again, these are all muscles that will be helping plantar flexion, or even the eccentric of that plantar flexion. So when you're coming and decelerating into the ground, these are very important when it comes to building the strength. I think eventually for athletes, you can kind of ease away from calf raises and stuff like that. But because your plyometrics, if you're doing plyometrics, will work the calf, it will work the Achilles, it'll work the tibialis anterior that people are obsessed with, the tib raises. Speaking of tib raises, if you can't do plyos yet, then sure, then work the tibialis. You can start on the wall, as you can see here, and just go for reps. Or my preference, a little bit better, is actually finding kettlebells and loading it that way, because then you can see that progressive overload and we can actually start to increase the weight. But once you can start playing with some plyometrics, then I would ease away from the calf raise. Personally, I eased away from the calf raises and all of this small accessory work, and then let's just work the plyometrics. Again, if you're thinking about plyos, you're working anywhere from 4 to 11 times body weight. This is going to be a lot better when it comes to getting your ankle, calf comp, everything, lower body, even the bottom of the foot, more able to brace the intensity of whatever activity you're doing. For me was 10-meter platform, which is me jumping off cement. If there's a lot of divers listening, you're jumping off cement, which hurts. So how can we get that foot and ankle ready to take that on? One of the first plyos that if I were going back into it, I would probably just start doing jump rope. Keep it simple. A very light jump rope, you can just go for time. You can do kind of like split leg jump rope as you're seeing me do here. Once that starts to feel good, you can even go single leg, but you're just kind of working the foot and ankle. Again, a little bit of cardiovascular training, which is nice. But yeah, jump roping is a very simple way of loading and starting some plyometrics. Another way, again, if you want to see the load here, is doing a single leg variation and actually loading it with weight. So I have a plate above me here, and I'm actually just loading that as much as I can, eventually loading that as much as I can without any pain. And then once we want to start upping the intensity, you can actually do band assisted pogos, trying to get some height, but making sure you can pull some of that weight off so it's not as intense. So as you can see here, I'm pulling on the band, but I'm also trying to get as much drive through the floor as I can. Lastly, once that really starts to get pretty easy, as you can see here, I'm using still bar assistance, but I'm starting to actually plant as much as I can and really drive through the floor. How can we start to increase the intensity of these plyometrics? There's a million plyometrics: single leg bounding, double leg bounding, sprinting, there's so many. I've literally showed you just a minute amount, but just to give you an idea of how these things can be done. There's a million different ways. I'm not saying my way is right, but this is just some of the things that I've done. So foot and ankle. So now we get into the hip. A lot of the time they will look above. And so the above would be your hips and your entire hip complex, your adductors, your glutes. How is this functioning? Are your hips a little offline, so you're loading into one side? Another isometric, as you can see here, is a horse stance, but if you pull your knees out, you're actually loading your glutes and your adductors at the same time. And again, I'll use a lot of isometrics. As you can see here, I'm also using a foam roller. So it's just how can we start to find little pieces within our chain, our kinetic chain, that are lacking. So is it your adductors, something that keeps your knee stable? Or is it your hip mobility? Is it hard for you to actually abduct, abduct, get your knee out, your hips out, your legs out, in a way to where actually when you load, you have one side compensating. So I'll show you some drills here. This is me doing like a full range fire hydrant to get as open as I can, or you can do a straight leg fire hydrant. I actually think they're kind of slept on and they're super challenging. You can load your adductors and open your hips at the same time by using a kettlebell or a dumbbell and shift into one side, as you can see here. And then the other one is the ability to actually open, abduct, right? Using your glutes to pull the knees open. So there's a million different ways, 90-90s, internal and external, to make sure. Again, this is all about how your body stabilizes your hips and makes sure that we can be aligned while we're doing some form of movement, like a front or an inward off of 10 meter. So just some final pieces here. You could see a pancake push-up is something that can work the mobility of your groin and start to work the strength. And then you also have seated variations of this. You have a cable variation of this. And then from there, one of my favorite ones that I actually have found to really make sure that my knee feels good is the pigeons. So if you can't get your knee flat straight down and you actually have knee pain from that, get it elevated. Use a elevated bench or put something underneath your knee. But here, I know for a fact that my glutes are not a piece or an issue that really attacks my knee, because I really worked it, and my glutes are strong and they're mobile, and it's never really been a problem for me. And then again, honorable mention, when it comes to your hips, is actually opening the front of your hip flexors. And so a wall couch stretch, again, there's a million different ways to do this, but this would be a great way to do that. So personally, I don't feel like I've run into too many knee problems where the hip is the problem. And if it is the problem, then I don't feel like I've run into extreme knee pain from that. But when the tendon is weak and the ankles are weak, it's kind of this recipe for a disaster to happen. So address the feet, address the tendon. The obvious piece is your tendon is weak, so it can't withstand the load of what you're doing. So then let's look at the pieces above and below and work on it. You might as well do both, above and below, and then it'll intertwine and connect in the middle. Okay, next, hamstrings, which does play a ginormous role. If you're getting a bunch of hamstrings, sometimes people have pain in the back, but this is a great way to make sure that you are strong and structurally balanced. Some people hate that, but there's been studies showing that if you are strong behind the knee, it helps the front of the knee. So again, Nordic hamstring curls, you can use a GHD machine. You can use a strap on a bench or find a partner, but Nordics are great. Again, simple training is good though. RDLs, deficit RDLs, as you can see here, they go a long way. And again, it's simple training, but if done well, you should be good. I've yet to really experience being really lacking in hamstrings, but if that might feel very weak to you and it feels like it's a limiting factor when it comes to your knee, train your hamstrings. And it's very accessible and easy. You don't need a barbell. As you can see here, I have a hamstring curl machine where I'm leaning forward and finding some range, kettlebell here to get some long range hamstring work. It doesn't need to be a Nordic hamstring curl, and even some isometric work for the hamstring. So there's a million different ways you can do this. Just play around and make sure you have a well-balanced training program. And to be honest, at the end of the day, I think this is the big piece is, can you have a well-balanced program if your knee hurts? Can we hit all of these pieces? Yes, you can. I am the living tale of that. We've been able to implement all of these things, utilizing your warm-ups, your interset stretching, or even just your cool downs. Like, you can hit a lot of things and make sure that you're not lacking in any department. Lastly, and one of the more important pieces, is actually your recovery. Recovery is hard. Let's say you're in college and you have school, so you're walking to class. You have the stress of school. You have the stress of your sport. It's the same thing in high school, or even if you're a pro. But how can we recover? And this is where things get controversial, but the R.I.C.E protocol has been proven to be pretty shit, or even the guy that made the R.I.C.E protocol, rest, ice, compress, elevate, he said don't do it. So take it from the guy that made it, don't do it. Outside of, if it really feels like it's working, then fine. But the man himself even said, we can do this in a better way. Personally, I took out ice and felt substantially better. Can I get way more heat? I was throwing on a heat pack before practices and after, and I was doing not crazy hot, but I was going for a pretty warm temperature for an extended period of time, for like an hour after, and it really felt like it flushed out the area, and I felt loose. Over icing, doing it before practice, after practice, all I felt was my tendon tightening up all the time, and then I had to recover from or loosen up from that. And it just felt like it was walking me backwards all the time. This was a huge change that made me feel a million times better. Another weird one that I had to do a lot of talking to doctors and see what they did, and I ran into this random advice that was super weird. Most people would be like, what the hell? Especially if you ask your team doc or whoever, is a nitroglycerin patch. It's for heart attacks or people that have heart issues, but it like thins out the blood so you can bring more to the area. If anyone's medical and can explain that a little bit more, maybe I will in the comment section so I don't butcher the crap out of that. But you're bringing a lot of blood to an area. It's a little patch, little plastic patch. And you take a fourth of it, you put it on at night, and it just helps with recovery because you're getting more blood to the area. Really helped. It really helped. I probably did it for a year and a half, close to 2 years, and it really gave me a lot of benefit by being able to feel more recovered in the morning after that previous day. So super random one. Definitely talk to your doctor. You literally have to have a doctor's note to get it. So talk to them. And then personally, I would always try to stay away from, after I learned, but I would try to stay away from heavy anti-inflammatories. Stay away from the drugs because they're masking the pain. They're not making it better. So you could just be pushing your knee to hell and you have no idea. So we want to be, hey, was my warm-up crap? Well, you wouldn't know if you're masking the pain. Did you do too much in practice? Well, you wouldn't know because you're masking the pain. The only time I would use it when you get to a competition and you need to push through and you need to do your job. Okay, great, cool. I'm not gonna say a word. I've done it a million times and it's helped me a million times. Sometimes that's when you need to do it. So that was a big one. Another piece when it comes to just being overly healthy and feeling good, focus on your diet, eat whole foods, don't be extreme, just eat a whole foods based diet. If there's too many ingredients, usually overly processed. Processing isn't bad, but don't eat Skittles and shit like that. Just make sure you're eating clean and it will help with the recovery. It really will. Last but not least, one of the more important ones, you need to get a lot of sleep. You need to get good quality sleep. Can you tape your mouth shut so you're not sleeping with your mouth open? Look into James Nestor's work if you're interested in that statement, but sleep is going to be super important. Sleep is where you're recovering. If you're sleeping 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours, it's not enough, especially as an athlete where you really need to recover. So those are my really big pieces when it comes to recovery. Recovery is going to be probably one of your biggest factors here, if not your biggest factor here, is how can you recover from what you're doing. If you can't recover, you're just going to keep breaking down and you're screwed. So this isn't medical advice, once again, but this is what I've done. These are the pieces that I had to learn over time. Just be honest with the people that are around you. Your support staff want you to do as well as possible. If there's something you're not liking that they're doing, you are allowed to say no. That's something I had to learn the hard way. And I just kept doing things that I didn't like or that felt like they were doing nothing. Your feel is important. If it feels like it's not doing shit, stop doing it. I'm not saying don't try things. And if they don't feel like they're working right off the bat, don't be impatient, wait. But try it for 2 months, 3 months. Didn't feel like there was anything. After that, then you might just be wasting your time. If you're doing a banded clam opener and it's really feeling like it's doing nothing, because it might be just doing nothing and you might need to load things a little bit more aggressively. So stuff like that. That's what I've got. Sorry for this being super long, but I think it's an important topic. If you have questions, again, jump in the comments. If you have concerns, jump in the comments. But at the end of the day, this is your journey. Your support staff, your doctors, your physical therapists, they're here to help you. And if you're not liking something they're doing, tell them. Communication is going to be massive. You need to be able to talk to these people, or you're just going to be kind of floating along doing nothing. I did that for a few years and it didn't solve anything. So really lean into communication. You're allowed to talk to other people. You're allowed to get other opinions. You're allowed to get other people to look at your body. Do not shy away from doing that. And if your medical provider or whoever gets pissed off, then that's on them and they're being childish. This is supposed to be collaborative. So with that being said, thank you for listening. And hopefully this was helpful. Peace.